Hello, everybody. I hope you are well wherever you're joining us from, whether it is morning or evening or afternoon for you. Thank you for being here with us today. We have a great conversation planned for you with one of our alumni from the 2023 year, Esma Gumberije, where we're going to talk a little bit about her work, her experience completing the program as a person living with a disability, and her work on behalf of communities with disabilities in her native country of Georgia and around the world. But also, we hope that this will be an opportunity for you to hear directly from someone who completed the program and who understands the CE program, who experienced it, and to learn from her experience of doing that. So, we thank you for making time to be here with us today. Before I welcome Esma, I want to just give a brief overview of the CE program if this is your first time hearing about us. So, the CE program is a dynamic global network of innovators working with communities to address 21st century issues. So, the program equips emerging leaders with the expertise, resources, and support needed to build engaged and healthy communities, and we operate in over 100 countries around the world. The program is a leadership development experience for leaders who are at the beginning of their careers, who are engaged in issues they care about in their community, but are maybe looking for that next step to help them grow in their careers or to help them define how they want to grow in their careers. The program is a year-long commitment for leaders aged 21 to 27 to connect you to networks, to help you learn uh, more technical expertise within your chosen area of community development work, and to become the sort of leader that you want to be. Specifically, we work in the themes of civic dialogue and peace building, open and participatory government, women and gender issues, environmental sustainability, and youth engagement. But those are very broad areas, all areas really of civil society work we expect are encompassed within those five themes. It's a year long program, but it breaks down into a 3 month practicum in the United States with an organization that is in your area of work. So, what we do as a team is we try and find an organization in the US that aligns with the work you do in your home country so you can connect with a similar organization, connect with professionals in your field, and really learn concrete things in a different work context, in a different cultural context that you can then bring back to your home country. And so we hope that that's a very powerful professional development experience. While you do that, you are completing an online leadership development training course led by our professional leadership coaches at Cohen's and Company, where you'll be in a process of sort of deep self-reflection about who you are as a leader and who you want to become as a leader, and how you need to develop to be there. While you're developing at your practicum organization, you're going to be working on a project that you will make happen in your home country, called the Community Engagement Project. So the idea is that while you're here, you're learning things that you're going to directly bring back to your country in the form of this project. And then there are a variety of alumni activities that you'll have the opportunity to engage in when you return and when you finish the program. So the idea is that the CE program is something that is a powerful experience for you as a fellow, but that the main thrust of it, the enduring piece of it, is that you are connected to this incredible community of alumni who are there to support you and who are your people, essentially, your a resource for you as you proceed through your career. And so the application, it will run until July 2nd. We are almost, I believe, at the 1 month point. We have about 2 weeks more to go in the application, and so we're getting there. And so, if you are interested in applying, if you're interested in learning more, I encourage you to check out the website that is scrolling on the ticker here on the screen. It'll have all of the eligibility information about the program, as well as the link you'll need to apply. But without any kind of further interruption, I'm very excited to be joined by one of our very special alumni from the 2023 program, Esba Gumberije, to talk a bit more about her experience directly with the program. Because, as I mentioned, the power of this program, the real value of this program is the people and the alumni that it produces and the community that you get to join as a fellow. So, Esma, thank you so much for being here with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Daniel, for inviting me, and thanks to the IREX team for inviting me.
Wonderful. Esma, I'm wondering if you can just start by introducing yourself. Where are you calling from? What is a bit of your story? What is the work that you do in your home country? And where did you
Yep.
complete your practicum when you were a fellow
Mhm.
in the CE program?
Sure. So I currently am in Tbilisi, Georgia. It's around 6 p.m. in the evening here. I welcome you all, and I hope that many of you who are watching will actually apply for this program and will have a wonderful experience with it. So I was placed in Boston, Massachusetts. I here in Georgia am mainly active and involved with disability rights activism, policy and legislative advocacy, more than service providing, but also am involved in raising public awareness, trying to advocate for example, accessible traffic lights being installed and so on. I was placed in Disability Policy Consortium in Boston, and that organization also deals with the state level legislative and policy advocacy with the state Congress and also other government entities.
Thank you very much. Can you tell me, I would love to get in a little bit more about what you did on a day-to-day basis with the Disability Policy Consortium. So what was your role at the organization and what were you engaged
Right.
with on a consistent basis there?
Right. I have drafted text of testimonies, so the public statement that they would make in Congress, for example, about certain laws that they pushed for or pushed against. I was involved in community mobilizing, trying to find uh, parents with disabilities who were stripped of their parental rights, either due to their disability or were afraid of such. And I was searching for them on Facebook and different disability groups. I was doing phone calls to mobilize people to come to Congress and attend um, events and testify in committee hearings. I was given like distributing thank you notes to different offices of members of Congress in both Senate and House of Massachusetts State House.
As someone who works around disability rights activism in Georgia in a different context, what was the experience like getting to work with an organization like the Disability Policy Consortium? What was that
Right.
like for you?
It was
Yeah,
very
go
interesting.
ahead.
It was a bit similar, but also different in so many ways. Well, first of all, is that here in Georgia, we don't have that many opportunities to fund advocacy efforts. So even the grants that we get for advocacy, they are 2 3 years long, and it's never enough to accomplish like to get the law passed, to put it simple. And I thought when I went there, obviously before going there, before I would arrive, we had a talk and they told me, we had an online meeting and they told me about their priorities, what bills they're working on. And I thought that within those 3 months that I'm there, those bills will get passed. And I went there and I realized that these bills have been pushed for like some of them for 10 years, some of them for 8 years, but they still had the resource to do this. And thought about Georgia, where we have only 1 or 2 year project, and you're supposed to be able to push the legislation through, which apparently is not so possible and easy even in the US. Yeah, and then just the way the people persist and keep calling their congressman's office, keep writing letters, keep signing onto letters, keep sending emails, even after they fail, even after the bill gets put aside. That was very, very inspirational for me. But again, I also saw how well resourced the effort was. And because actually, to mobilize people, it's not so easy. You have to have databases, you have to be calling people, you have to be reminding them that they should come at least 2 3 times. That's to say the least. to write like templates of letters that they would send to senators. Here, actually, we never. I have never seen an advocacy campaign where every single legislator would be reached out by their constituents and told to vote for or against a certain law. Usually, we target few members of parliament, or we target the parliament as a whole, or we try to work with maybe major opposition parties or government parties and so on. So yeah,
Okay.
and also I would also say a peace culture and cooperation culture was very important for me to watch. How they were cooperating on certain issues with service providers with whom they might be disagreeing on other matters, but they still would reach out and have these issues based coalitions, which means that they don't have to be always together in everything, but for on certain issues, if they have common ground, they can advocate together and join the forces. Just
Somewhat.
with things, I will bring like an example of medical care and expenses related to certain prescription drugs. It's a situation where, for example, hospitals are also interested into getting these prescription drugs costs down, while in other cases, hospitals may not be on the same side as disabled people, but in this particular case, they were working together, and because also hospitals may have other legislators with whom they're close to, and they would reach out to their audience, target audience, and our organization would reach out to their audience, and so on.
That breakdown there. And I'm glad that there were a lot of, I guess, common threads that reached across your work and the work you were doing with the consortium, and new things to learn and to work on. Obviously, your work is around advocating for the rights of persons with disabilities, and enhancing their quality of life and creating opportunities. I am wondering, as someone living with a disability yourself, what was your experience like completing the CE program on a day-to-day basis?
Right, right. So when I applied, I wasn't too worried because I have participated in few other US and the European Union funded programs and projects, and I knew that some sort of reasonable accommodation would be put in place. But obviously, I was interested in hearing more details on that. And once the time for practicum has come, I was approached by, well, I mean, a few weeks before, I was approached by the deputy director of the program, and we had a call and discussed my needs. So I'm blind from birth totally. I can differentiate some colors, but this doesn't have any practical meaning because I cannot really use my vision in basically daily life and daily living. So I was given few options in terms of accommodation and also services that I would need to get. So I was offered to bring an assistant with me if I would want to, or if I could, and provided that the assistant would be provided with life support and subsistence support. But I thought a lot about this, and I asked around other blind people. Some told me that I should, some said that I shouldn't, because I had to put a lot of thought into this. On the one hand, obviously taking care of everything on your own if you're blind takes you a lot of time, especially when you are not so used to do all the, for example, household work um, at home on your own. Um, so that means that you would need more time for that, and you may not have as much time for your work, for your career. On the other hand, I was thinking that one of the experiences, gaining independence, would be one of the valuable experiences that I wouldn't have in Georgia, and the services that I would be offered, I wouldn't ever probably, or anytime soon, I wouldn't have them in Georgia. So I decided that gaining independence would be a great asset. And also, when you are, for example, moving around the city independently, it's exactly where you notice all the accessibility features of it. You know, if there are sound traffic lights, if there are tactile like uh, signs, if there are things that you need as a blind person to move around, because when you're taken around by someone, by an assistant, you don't pay attention to these things when you don't use the white cane. So I decided not to have an assistant. Another issue was my accommodation, because, as you, all of you, or most of you might know, um, most of the CE fellows, not all, but most of them are hosted in host families, which many times means that they have to live out like a little bit further away from the downtown, from the city center, from like office area, and that means that they have to spend a lot of time on transportation, on commuting, and also switching different types of transportation. So in this case, I would have a difficulty of learning how to move around, and it would probably take up a lot of time, or I would have to do a lot of work remotely, which then wouldn't make sense, because I mean, in the end, I came there for a purpose, right? We have a in-person practicum for a purpose, for it to be really in person. So I was, for example, because I lived close to my office, I was able to go to state congress and meet some of the legislators and have direct conversations with them, and attend some in-person meetings and observe, which is very important. Just like the way how they handle themselves in these kind of meetings. Yeah, so I was offered another option for me to have a rented apartment near the office where I was interning, and that worked out quite well. In terms of support, I had a personal assistant coming once a week. So this person would help me with things that I may not be able to do on my own. For example, with some cleaning, with some banking details, if I was not able to withdraw the money, for example, from ATM for whatever reason, which happened a couple times, or if I needed to be taken to the medical office, or I don't know, do extensive shopping, grocery shopping, and pick up things that are heavy, or take me somewhere else where I didn't know how to get to a given place. Another service that I was getting was mobility and orientation, and that service I was getting for first month, or maybe month and a half. I don't remember. So the person was hired who taught me how to move around with my cane independently. So how to get to my office, which was um, like just a couple crossings away, how to get to some of the stores, how to get to a couple of restaurants um, in the nearby area, and like how to get to certain places where I needed to go, like for any services, how to use ATM, do my laundry, and like use the washing machine, or use the stove and microwave, because the stoves and microwaves have this touch panel. So we needed to put some raised dots, like a tape raised dots on them, so that I know the different regimes of the washing machine, for example, and of the stove, um, and the oven and the microwave. So she helped me with these little things in the beginning. Also, in the very beginning, after the initial workshop, I was accompanied to Boston to my host community by IRAC staff members, who, again, in the beginning, showed me around the apartment, helped me buy some groceries to start my life off with, because it was a weekend, so my trainer, mobility and orientation trainer, was not able to come. And then uh, actually, I was shown just once how to get to my workplace. And next day, I already had to go there. It was a working day. And then I just went there. And there were two fellows placed in one organization. And because I didn't know anything inside the building, I asked another fellow to wait for me outside of the office building. And then he brought me inside. And then I was shown around the inside of the office building. Yeah, so that was it. I mean, I was able to also practice a lot of independent living skills, because I had to go to New York City to participate in the UN events. They were not directly related to CEE, but I asked for leave in my host organization, and I went, for example, to the conference of the states parties of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Um, I went to the high level political forum on sustainable development, and I went on the UN's Economic and Social Council's youth forum. For some of that, I had separately applied and gotten the funding, not in the US, but for other funding. For other opportunities, I didn't, so I actually found a group Facebook group, which was called Host a Sister. And it's a group for females, only female group. And I asked if somebody could host me for a few days. And I found hosts in New York City. I found people who were sighted guides for me around and who were taking me around the UN and who met me at the bus station, for example. And dropped and like sent me back to Boston. So yeah, I had to practice a lot of coordination on different level, I would say, very different levels. And
Really.
obviously, also I want to add on this that the platform of the course was mainly fairly accessible. Some of the material, like some of the forms were in Excel, some of the forms that were not quite accessible, then I was able, the reasonable accommodation was that I was able to just write my answers into the form, like into a simple Word document and just upload it on a platform or send it by email to my mentors and coaches.
Appreciate that breakdown, Esma. Thank you very much. And to give some wider context for those watching about, I guess, our approach and what reasonable accommodations we offer, our intention as an organizing team is that the CE program is as accessible as possible for people living with disabilities, whether that be physical, mental, or related to chronic illness. I think the process that Esma described is very tailored to the individual. So it really depends on what the individual's needs are and what they tell our team they need. That's the first step. So for candidates with disabilities who are applying for the program, there's a form that we'll send out that essentially you tell us what you need from us, whether that be software for your computer or a special or a electric scooter if you need that, or a special living situation or an in-person assistant, as Esma described, whatever that may be. It really is intended to be personalized and divined through a process of conversation that you tell us. And it starts now. I think if you're an applicant and you need special accommodations to complete the application, our application is screen reader accessible. But in terms of the interview stage, when we get there, if you need to submit a written interview instead of a recorded one, depending on your situation, these are accommodations that our team is willing to provide in order to facilitate your involvement, because we want this to be a place for people with all abilities to thrive and succeed. Esma, that process of sort of personalization that you talked about a bit. I'm wondering, how was that sort of like on a week to week basis when you sat down with Luis, our deputy project director, of figuring out, okay, we're going to provide these things, or this is what I need. How did you go through that, and what was that like?
Yes, so first, well, when not when I was applying, but when I was already selected. Well, to some extent, I think when I was applying, I did mention that I have disability. So once I was selected and notified, then I had to fill out additional form about which was more focused and more specific about my needs and what kind of I think it was like an assessment on my, let's say, functioning day to day, like living needs and living conditions and like living functioning skills. And then based on that form, we've scheduled, well, Luis has reached out to me and we scheduled a call where he first gave me, a few options in terms of bringing up my own personal assistant or um, whether or not I should be placed in a host family or how should that work. And then obviously I had some time where I was thinking about these and like making the choice. And then I think I wrote about my choice, but then eventually we had another phone call. So it was few weeks of exchanges of phone calls and emails, not phone calls, but Zoom calls rather, and communication. Obviously, it's very important to mention your needs honestly and don't overestimate them, don't underestimate them. Yeah, and I think it's also sometimes hard to know your needs because if you have never been in a similar setting where you have to be all by yourself, all alone, um, then it's hard to know what to expect. And this is where I think it's important to try and reach out to people with similar disabilities in your community who have experience of being abroad, or maybe also to ask to the CE alumni. Me personally, I am available, um, and I would be ready if you reach to IREX team, and they can always put me in contact, and I would be ready to share my own experience. And I don't know, my advice or suggestion, but otherwise, yeah, I mean, it's always important to also be flexible with things. I sometimes, when I something would urgently, I don't know, break in my apartment, I would reach out to the apartment building, to the reception, and have them find, for example, if I would lose something in my room, I would ask them to find it for me, like help me. So, of course, you have to be ready for that. And again, try to seek out as much information around as possible. Yeah, I was also provided a different phone because I was not able to use smartphone with touch screen. Not all blind people have this problem. Many of blind people do use smartphones with touch screen, and they use it with screen reader where they just will install the screen reader inside. But for me, I so far haven't managed that. So the program has purchased a simple keyboard phone for me.
I think something you said that's really important is how you adapt to challenges, and I think this is true for all CE fellows. But I think that process of when you encounter something that you didn't know you needed, making that clear to our team, because I think our team is really, the program is on board to really help support and be flexible and pivot in whatever way we need to. And I'm wondering if you can share a little bit more about challenges maybe that you encountered, either directly related to your disability or not, throughout the program. How did you address those challenges? And if you leaned on support, or if you brought in, whether it was your mentors, your IRIX advisors, or whoever, I guess, how did you approach those situations?
Right. I had situations, yeah, like when the card would be swallowed by the ATM, and then we needed to get it blocked and replaced. Obviously, I had to, and I reached out to IREX team. I had situation where I was not able to withdraw the cash from the ATM card. I don't remember for whatever reason, and the service that I needed was not taking my prepaid card. And basically, yeah, I was with my assistant, and she had to pay for me, and then I had to give her money back, which again, I mean, unless this is very urgent, I wouldn't wish this would happen, but sometimes things happen, and I had to um, reach out and call IREX hotline Friday evening, because I needed obviously the prepaid card to work for for the weekend, and they were asking like, and was explaining them that I don't have any assistance for the rest of the week because I have had assistance only on Fridays, so I needed to this issue with the card to be sorted out. So I needed someone from IREX to find out what happened with the card, and obviously I did give my card details, but yeah, so there were some some technical issues of sorts, also with the working plan, how accessible it was, but everything can be solved with the right and timely communication, I shall say, and knowing very well all the instances where you can go, either to go to your advisor, in which situation you should go to advisor, where to the mentor, and where to the hotline, for instance. So, yeah.
Yes, but thank you. I have two more questions before we'll get to the questions from the chat. I think one is thinking about your CE experience in total, from the beginning to the end, and now your experience as an alumni. I guess, what was the biggest thing you have taken away from being a CE fellow and from being a part of this program? What is the biggest thing that you, I guess, have learned, or that it has given you, or that you have, or that it has meant for you?
I mean, obviously, the experiences of how the advocacy is being done, because I also applied for CE PACs for CEE exchange project, where we were able to arrange the visit of my supervisor to Georgia, like 2 week long visit, where he went to different regions of Georgia, five and conduct 5, 6 meetings with different disability related organizations, and deliver and design and deliver workshops on advocacy, on coalition building, decision making techniques, how to avoid patronizing attitudes, and so on. So that was that required a lot of organizing on my side as well. Also, like directly from the practicum, again, all the independent living skills, and you know that you have to be proactive, that you have to. Leadership is not only about leading others, but it's also about making choice and seeking for help when you need to, and not being afraid of getting lost. For instance, I got lost a couple of times on the streets, and then I was asking people to take me to the right route. Let's say I knew obviously the address where I was going, so um, that kind of thing was very important for me. Those two aspects, I would say.
Really appreciate that. Thank
And
you, Ashley.
we also had na- um, my supervisor had a workshop with his colleagues, with my host organization, with DPC, where he shared the insights of how advocacy is being done in Georgia and what the issues are here. So I think for them, it was also of an importance that they got, let's say, outside the view of disability movement, outside of their state, and also understanding that most of the countries do follow their example. Therefore, it's important to, make the disability inclusion as as real as possible in the US, for which obviously they have to advocate, so that then other countries could take the right examples and share the right experiences.
Thank you so much. Last question before we get to questions from the audience. Thinking now we are obviously in the middle of an application process and we're nearing the end of it. Thinking back to when you were applying for it and considering our other applicants in progress who are living with disabilities, what advice do you have for them for how to approach the program, for how to alleviate their concerns potentially about approaching the program, and to have a great experience within CEE?
I think, yeah, it was funny with me because I did my interview. I recorded my interview on the last day, which is not a good thing, but anyway. And it was exactly like a few days after the war in Ukraine started, and I was outside of Tbilisi. I was on some peace building workshop that I was attending, and it was a very, very dangerous moment because we were not sure here in Georgia if the war would spill over to us, and also there were some nuclear threats around Ukraine, which we would also get some of it if something would have happened. And in all of this stress, I wasn't even sure that I would be able to record the interview, and I one of our participants to hold a camera for me, and I did it in the end. But I think like uh, try to gather as much information and listen to the alumni experiences, and also again try to reach out to other persons with disabilities who have been abroad, who have lived independently. Is a great way of doing it. I don't remember if necessarily I read that the program was welcoming persons with disabilities, because I usually don't pay attention to this. I just, if I see an interesting program that I want to be in, even if it's not specifically meant for persons with disabilities, I still apply, even if it's mainstream. And I think this is a right approach, and just demonstrate your experience, and then, as I said, later on find out more about the possible accommodations or about your possible state where you will be staying or organization, and ask them. And I mean, in my organization, I have to say they were not protective, let's say, or overprotective. So, they saw me as themselves. Like, I said that I'm about to leave, um, and they just asked if I needed help to get to the metro, and I said no because I live nearby. I don't use the metro, the subway. So, and they were fine. They were not, because they also had various types of disabilities, and they knew that people with disabilities still can do things, and therefore they had a belief in me.
Thank you so much for that, Esma. I think that is quite insightful, and I think everything you've said in total is a real resource. I think that relying on the network of alumni who you know, and making your needs known and being proactive are all really good approaches to take. And with that, I would love to open it up to any questions that we have in the chat. If you have a question either for Esma or about the program in general, please put it in the chat and we will answer it. I see we have a couple here. A question from Jacob. My work is focused on persons living with disabilities. Can I apply? I hope that what you've learned from watching this is yes, you can. This is a program where I think that, and what's within that is, I think, a question maybe about our program themes. The program themes, which once again are civic dialogue and peace building, open and participatory government, women and gender issues, environmental sustainability, and youth engagement. Those are meant to be big tents, right? And so then you have something like, for instance, disability advocacy and rights, which can fall under a multitude of those, right? And so I think at the beginning is you as an applicant are thinking, okay, where does my work fall under those themes? Whether, but it doesn't, but it, you're the one telling us. It's sort of you're telling us where your specific work and your specific context falls within those themes. And in many cases, it might overlap. Esma, do you have anything to add to that?
I
Or
don't, for example, I don't remember which category I put, honestly.
yeah, no, I think that absolutely. If you work with people with disabilities, we have Esma obviously is one of our alumni who does that, but we have many others who do as well, and organizations who are very passionate about that and who work in those contexts within the United States. So yes, please apply. With your
Obviously, if
needs.
you fall under the age criteria, of
Yes,
course.
of course. If you meet all the other eligibility requirements, but your work with people with disabilities is absolutely welcome. A question here from Blaze. What are the requirements to be a part of this program? So thank you for the question. There are a few different ones, and I encourage you to read the eligibility requirements in full on our website, which you can see below. That is going by, and to really take time before you apply to really look at those. But I can tell you that a few, you have to be from one of our eligible countries. So on our website, there's a full list of countries which are eligible to apply for this cycle. You have to be between the ages of 21 to 27. You have to have around 2 years experience working in an area of community development. That is very broad as well. That can be volunteer experience, that can be professional experience, but it's something that you need to have. You also need to have a professional level of written and spoken English. So you don't need to verify that now at this point in the application. Later on in the application, if you are a finalist, that'll be something that we'll work with you on. But those are some of the major ones. Esma, do you have anything to
Uh,
add?
when I was applying, there was a possibility to either later on, again, once I was pre-selected and shortlisted, there was a possibility to either pass a TOEFL test, which was covered, the expenses of it. However, you could not use it for anything else but CEE. And another option was if which I used because I did have an IELTS certificate, but it was from 3 years before. So normally the normal expiration date of IELTS certificate is 2 years, but on the website, like in the criteria, it was specifically mentioned that it could be still like 3 years old. So it's always very important to read the text very carefully, the details about the requirements, because if you don't pass the formal requirements, then you will be automatically disqualified, of course.
Definitely. And I want to reiterate that last piece. Definitely take time to read the eligibility requirements carefully because that is a big thing. And in addition to the IELTS and TOEFL, the Duolingo English proficiency exam is something that we also accept and that we also cover. But I don't want to get too much into that because at this point in the application, really, it's not something that you need to worry about too much. But if you have specific questions about that and about your case, you can email us at apply.cee@irex.org, and we'll put that up on the screen before we head out. Now, question for Nadia here. How many people are selected for every batch? It varies. It's around 130. So depending on the year, anywhere from 120 to 140 people are selected per cohort. So it's a biggish group, but it's small enough where you can build relationships and get to know other people in your cohort, which is a huge part of the experience, is building relationships with other leaders who are working in similar areas to you, maybe not, but building relationships with people who can become a real support network for you as you move down your career.
Yeah,
Um,
so we also, I mean, in every host city, usually there are few fellows placed. So it's not like that you will be completely alone. And it's good to have this little pack of fellows because then you get together, you can share experiences and maybe some difficulties and how you cope with your challenges and so on. So like you don't have only online virtual kind of support, but also virtually there are WhatsApp chats, there are Facebook groups for each year, I believe. So yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's a good point before we move on to our last question, where wherever you're placed, you're not alone. You have what we call pods in each city, where you'll have a handful of fellows who are all there. So in Esma's case, she was in Boston, but she was not, as she said, the only fellow in Boston. I think there were, 7 or 8. There was a group of people who were all there, and that's you have people to explore this city with and to be there. And if you need to reach out for support, or if you have questions and you're encountering the same, how to use the public transportation, that sort of thing, as you go forward. And this leads into, I think, to our final question that we have from Annalise. Could you please share additional information about what the CE program covers, travel, housing, et cetera? I think that's an excellent question and one that is, I think, a top of mind for a lot of applicants. So we essentially try and cover your full participation in the program. And so your expenses include travel, so your air ticket from your home country to the United States and back. There are 2 events within the United States that you'll attend as a cohort. So your welcome orientation and end of program workshop, which will be your travel from your host city to those events, is also covered by our team. As I mentioned earlier, that fellows are usually placed in a homestay, and our fellows are placed in either a homestay, that is, you're staying with a U.S. family in the community that you're working in, or you're in an apartment, also in the community you're working in, typically sharing that with another fellow. In both cases, we cover the cost of your housing. There is a stipend for food. We also offer a emergency health plan to cover if you get sick, if you get injured, and you need to go to the hospital or the clinic. That is covered by us as well. There are special dispensations, for instance, in the context of disability accommodation and support. There's reasonable accommodations that you would need if you are a person who needs that. Would also be covered by our team. So the cost of an electric wheelchair, the cost of any software that you would need, the cost of a special cell phone, whatever that is, our team will arrange and will cover that. I think those are the main ones. Esma, are there any comments you want to add on that front?
Mm. I think it's pretty exhaustive. Yeah, I don't think there are any other. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I
there
think
is like monthly. There are obviously the visa fees also, or the visa waivers. and yeah, like subsistence allowance to include
Absolutely,
these different
yes.
components.
And fees that you accrue, as mentioned in the process of procuring your visa, also arranged by our team. So wonderful. I think with that, we have answered all the questions in the chat. If you have any other questions, feel free to DM us directly on the platform that you're watching this on, or you can email our team at apply.cee@irex.org. Esma, I want to thank you again for making time to be here with us today. I thought this was a really insightful conversation, and appreciate you giving us your time and for being so willing to engage on your experience.
Thank you, Daniel, for having me.
All right. And thank you all for joining. We really appreciate it. Wherever you're joining from, I wish you a great rest of your week. And anything you need, please let us know. And our team is here to support. As a reminder, the application is due July 2nd, 2022, or 2024, rather. Ha
Sure.
ha ha. What year we are. Please, yeah, if you need anything, our team is here to support. Get your applications in before July 2nd. And we are here. So good luck. We appreciate it, and have a great rest of your week.